Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Rand. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Howard Hanna Rand Realty, and I'm delighted to be with you today for this RISMedia Broker webinar series, which today is called Seize the Day, How to Stay Productive, Proactive, Productive, and Competitive in a Challenging Market, and sponsored by KERO, who we'll be hearing from in a moment. I just want to introduce our panelists. We have a wonderful group of panelists today to talk about being proactive, productive, and competitive. And that is Brittany Ortiz, who's going to talk first of the Market Development Manager at KERO. We also have Dean de Tonancourt. Apologies if I butcher that name. He's the president. I did it all right. All right, good. President and CEO of Home Smart Professionals Real Estate. And Stephanie Anton, the president of Corcoran Affiliates. And then Darices Eppinger, a realtor with Keller Williams Tri-County. But let me have us open up with Brittany from KERO to talk a little bit about what's going on at KERO right now. Take it away, Brittany.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. Again, my name is Brittany. I am the Market Development Manager here for KERO, and I am super excited about this topic that we're talking about today because I think it's a hot topic that we're hearing a lot about in the market. First and foremost, KERO is your go-to contractor for every listing. Joe, would you mind moving to the next slide?
Sure.
As we're talking about productivity in the market today, KERO has launched the KERO mobile app that is truthfully KERO in your back pocket. This helps you be productive, proactive, and competitive in the market today. You can build instant estimates for those pre-listing updates and repairs that need to be done to get a home ready for market, as well as price out inspection repair items from an inspection report right there in the KERO app. Joe, can you go back one more? I'll talk a little bit. One more to the right. Yep, there we go. And then we're talking about KERO at its core. Again, KERO is your contractor for pre-listing repairs and renovations, and absolutely zero is due from the seller until the home sells. We're completely turnkey, meaning you guys as agents and brokers can kick back, relax, and take that burden of project management off your plate. This is meant to be a stress-free process for you and your seller clients. We also have no project minimums or maximums, meaning that if you have a listing, you have a project for KERO. So anything from cleaning, decluttering, landscaping, handyman repairs to a full gut and remodel, we got you covered. And then I think the most enticing for those sellers in this market today is that pay at closing model. This truthfully means they pay absolutely zero to KERO until that home sells. So again, keep us in mind. I'll talk a little bit about our refresh conference that we have coming up here soon. Ultimately, this is going to be an in-person conference in the DC area. And the goal of this conference is to ignite growth and embrace that innovation and really get 2024 off to a great start. So be on the lookout for information about entering a raffle. And I'll talk more about at the end about the raffle for a free ticket to that. Go ahead and take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Brittany, so much. I appreciate that. I just want to remind everybody that there's a questions pane in your on the GoToWebinar dashboard. If you have a question you'd like to pose, put it in there. I will try to ask. I'll try to get to the questions that you might have if you have a follow-up or something that you'd like to raise, and we'll make sure we get through that. But I wanted to make sure I want to start actually. Go back. Brittany, I wanted to ask you because I want to follow up with you what you were talking about as we get into the topic. I want to thank you. You're an Army veteran. I want to thank you for your service to our country, but also ask you, you know, my read on people who have been in the military is that they are deeply imbued with an ability to stay productive, proactive, and competitive. That's sort of that's what you are trained to do. What have you learned? What did you learn from that training that helps you in what your business is now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a fantastic question, and I appreciate you thanking me for my service. It's an honor to have served our country. At the end of the day, I think what the military taught me the most, and it's going to be a tried and true tactic that I think we hear about all the time, is really just time management and time blocking and really making things having a time for everything that I'm doing during the day. I did start after I got out of the military, full transparency, I did go right into real estate. I thought it was a great field to be in. Obviously, having that entrepreneurial attitude and mentality. I dove right in while I was in college and was a real estate assistant. And one of the best things that I think that my military career brought to the table is me being able to manage multiple tasks just by being able to prioritize my time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, let me go. I want to go around the room and introduce everybody. Darice is a realtor with Keller Williams Tri-County, based in Philadelphia. Give me just a quick introduction to how you maintain your productivity. You're the day-to-day agent, I think, that we have on the panel. So I want to hear from you first about what you do to maintain productivity in a very challenging environment, a challenging job.
Thank you, Joe, and everybody. I'm happy to be here, just like Brittany, and thank you for your service. Very much appreciated. So, today most of the word on the street is it's a shifting market. It's so challenging. It's so challenging. I do three things to stay productive and proactive. One is I absolutely make sure my mindset is in the right spot. We agents have to remain positive, or we're going to get sucked into that horrible spot of limiting beliefs that the market dictates how busy I'm going to be. And I will tell you, at the beginning of this year, when everyone started to say, oh, inflation and the rates, I decided I'm not going to be one of the agents that falls out of this market, because as you brokers and other agents know, we will lose agents during this time. So I made up my mind, quite literally, that my mindset will be in the right spot. A second thing that I do is I do plan my day. It doesn't always go as planned. However, as Brittany said, that time blocking is so important. And as a Keller Williams agent, we have all these books and technologies from Gary Keller. The one thing, if you read the one thing as it applies to any agent, with respect to everybody, it is that, what is the one thing we can do to make the rest of the things we do less tedious or less time consuming? So that one thing for me is to make sure that I'm prospecting. If I take my eye off that, man, will I get caught up into admin things. And I'm a little bit of a creative person. I used to be in the advertising business, so I love to make a logo and then another logo and then another tagline, so I can get caught up in those things. Right, Stephanie, president of the corporate.
And do the flip.
Girl, I just like anything else, I try to get those things off my desk.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Let me bring in Stephanie. Stephanie Anton's the president of the Corcoran Affiliate Network. Congratulations on everything you've done to keep growing that network. Tell me what you're hearing from your position, your vantage point from your members or the potential members when you go on, do the recruiting that you do for new members to the network. How do they feel about the competitive landscape of the industry right now as we finish 2023 going into 24?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. First, I'll say, Darice, thank you for mentioning mindset, because I couldn't agree with you more. And also, I think prospecting, and then for brokers, that's recruiting. And so the message is the same, right? It's growing and focusing on growing. I know we're going to talk a lot more about it over the next hour, but I'm right with you. I think, Joe, thank you. And I think, there's a lot of new players in this business. There's new business models. There's new competitors. I've been around for 20 plus years, and it's hard to believe, but it seems always in the moment like there's now more than ever. But if I look back and I go back to 2003, 2004, and it was help you sell, and it was all these, there was always all of this noise, right? And so the best leaders that I know do an exceptional job of just staying informed about the competition, knowing what they offer, knowing their strengths, their weaknesses, but they don't get distracted. And I think if you can always focus on you, and whether you're a broker or an agent, you focus on you and your business and what makes you distinctly unique and different. And don't let the noise throw you off your game, because it gets in your head. And it's like an athlete, right? It's like when that noise gets in your head, it can really help throw you off your game. And so, like, you always be aware of kind of when someone's over your shoulder, but keep your head focused on the bottom line and sort of the end goal. And so it's actually randomly ironic that I would even give a sports analogy, but I think that there's a lot that we can learn from athletes. And, you know, those of us that have been in the business a long time, we all know this is cyclical. We forget, I think, that so many agents in this business have never seen a down cycle. But if you've been around a long time, you know this happens. And so the people that have been around a long time didn't overextend when times were really good. It's really a great time to watch your expenses and be thoughtful. It's an amazing time to recruit, amazing time to grow your business. And it's a good time to think about a change. I mean, Joe, like, you know, Corcoran, we're only 3 years into the franchise business. I'll tell you that we have a lot of people that are just interested in what we're offering. And I think people that are smart and said, okay, maybe we're not so busy right now. So how are we going to stay competitive in the future and sort of what's around the corner? So, and then I'll also just say, I don't think that you can cut your way to profitability. So it's just really, really important to be thoughtful about not only managing your expenses, but also growing your business and investing in you, whether you're a broker or an agent.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, what you said about focusing on what you can control, that you get distracted by the news of the day, and there's a lot of news going on right now in our industry that can take you off your day-to-day, but your day-to-day, as Darice said, is getting, you know, keeping your mindset positive about what you're doing and what you talked about in terms of don't getting distracted by the noise that's out there, which, you know, you don't have any control over, and so you might as well just do the things that you have to do. Let me bring in Dean, who's the president and CEO of the Home Smart Professionals Real Estate, based in Rhode Island. Good to see you. And, you know, Stephanie was saying how long she's been in the business, and
I have no sympathy.
You and I have been in a while, because you said, it says in your bio, you've been in the business for 35 years. I got my license almost 40 years ago. And it was funny because I was talking to some brokers that I sort of mentioned offhand to them that they were relatively new to the business, and they sort of bristled and they said, you know, we've been doing this for almost 10 years. I'm like, yeah, but you know what, if you didn't live through 2009, I consider you new in the business, because this is, you know, if you didn't get through that, you haven't lived, you know, you don't know what that right now is not really as bad.
Level of inexperience, right, Joe?
So tell me, what you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen markets come and go. And I know you've been really involved with the Realtor Network. You've been Realtor of the Year for the state, for your local region. What do you see as the challenges for our colleagues, our Realtor colleagues across the country in staying productive, proactive, competitive?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks again for having me. When I look at that question, Joe, I think I need to springboard off of something Stephanie said, right? What comes to mind is, Stephanie, you mentioned, how do you identify what makes you unique, right? And different and stand out above the rest. And you know, when we talk about challenges, you know, I think that falls under challenge and opportunity, that situation, because if there's any topic that I'm talking on regularly right now, it's our value proposition. What is our value proposition? Joe, you mentioned a lot of news out there in the industry, a lot of things happening right now that we're all watching, right? We're not going to go down the path of each situation, right? But we have to talk about it, and we have to have the conversation. And any conversation I'm having with our agents is about that value proposition. Are you able to properly articulate your value proposition? At the end of the day, everything we do leads right into the needs of the consumer, but yet we don't explain to the consumer how valuable our services are. And as we look at, you know, the news headlines and things that are hot talking points right now, and the national antitrust lawsuits that are happening, well, more than ever, we need to be able to articulate, does the consumer know our value? What are they expecting from us? Are we telling them what they can expect from us? And conversely, what we're going to provide, right? And when we look at the evolution of the industry itself, you know, the industry started in a very broker-centric mindset, right? Until new models came about maybe, 1970s, new models where it became a very agent-centric model. Then we evolved to consumer-centric, and we evolved to data-centric, and now we look at the convergence of AI, right? And when we look at that transition of the marketplace over time, we need to make sure more so than ever that we are in the front of the consumer and putting our best foot forward to become and maintain that trusted advisor. Because at the end of the day, what none of those components lead to is the interaction and the advisory capacity of the realtor in helping them in that transaction. So I feel as though it's a challenge because not everyone knows how to articulate that value. You mentioned how many people don't even know, haven't even seen a down market, right? Well, you didn't have to go in and talk about your value proposition because you just went in, you sold the house in a couple of days. What's the value? Well, I don't know, just making it happen. Well, now more than ever, we have to get back into articulating it. So is it a challenge? Yes, because we haven't been needing to do it recently, but it's an opportunity because the consumer is now going to be better informed.
Let's actually get into that. I always prepare a number of questions and share them in advance of like, here's the things that we might get into. And then I always say that we might get pulled into something completely different based on what you say that's kind of sparks some interest. And I will say this, kind of what all three of you said, which Dean kind of summed up, of the idea of bringing value to consumers, bringing value to the brokers that are in your network, Stephanie, bringing value to the clients that you work with, Darice and Dean. I think there's, what we're seeing right now, and this noise that's that's out there, really has to do with that value proposition. The fact that we have not, I think, as an industry, done a particularly good job of articulating that, or really, I would say, even refining it. And I guess the question I'll put out for anybody to address, and I want to really kind of dig into this. I think it's an interesting topic. Is what do agents see, and what do brokers see as their value proposition, and what do they perceive it as, and is it something that is it really consistent with what their value proposition should be and what consumers need? So how do they see their value proposition, the average agent out there today, and is it consistent with the value proposition that they should be articulating for their clients? What's the value proposition? Anybody?
I'll jump in and just say, I think
Yeah.
it's certainly evolved over time, right? So it's certainly no longer access to data in terms of like what listings are available. Yes, there's off-market stuff, but it's really no longer that. It's really being a trusted advisor. And I think that's what the agents that really differentiate themselves and do a phenomenal job of positioning themselves to their clients as is someone who has expertise and experience and who's going to give them the honest truth. And I think authenticity is a big part of something I talk about a lot. But I think that, kind of in this moment in time, one of the things that agents and brokers can do is to be an authentic resource for people and just someone that they can go to for help, advice, and expert insights. But to me, I think the big difference is expecting nothing in return. Because for those people that are coming out and saying, hey, I'll help you, and I don't need anything, I'm just happy to be a resource for you, and someday when you come back to me, when you're ready, you let me know. And that happens for agents and builds trust, it builds relationships with people. And I think that the best agents, that's the value they bring. And so is that the perception that consumers have of what they bring? I think it is. I think it's pretty matched. Certainly in the high end of the market, that's what an agent looks to their client for, or excuse me, a customer looks to their client for more than anything, is really to be the counselor. And I think that we've come full circle to say that that's really a lot of the value we provide, like I said, especially in the high end.
Dean or Darice?
Joe, I'd like to jump in, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is my favorite thing because I only got into the business 8 years ago. So I didn't live through 2009, but it was less of a seller's market, and I became an assistant prior to becoming an agent. I worked for a top producer, and that was invaluable to me. But I knew that when I went on my own that I needed to be different. And so I came up with this tagline for myself, a unique name in real estate, because of my name, Darice. And I would say to people, well, you're not going to meet another Darice today. Oh, your name's so unique. So I kind of evolved on its own. But then, so my listing presentation, I had to think of, well, how am I going to be unique? And I mean, right away, I was going to stage and prep properties better than anybody else. So I was able to do that by using a staging company and a stylist. So even if the house wasn't vacant, I would have them take the person's valuables and furniture and move them around. And I kind of put my name on that. So when I went on listing appointments, they'd say, well, what makes you different? And I was able to say, I prep houses like nobody else. And all of the work is done up front. So we're on the market a shorter time, sell faster, and for more money. And I meant it. KERO, ironically, was a huge part of that. Because if I was up against somebody and they had a kitchen from the 70s, I would say, guess what? I have a perfect solution. And actually, one of those photos that Brittany showed is one of my houses that we did a complete renovation. And man, you can really show value when you're saying, oh, do you want to make X amount? Here's a way we can do that. If you don't have an answer for how can I get another 25 grand, that's going to be a problem.
You know, it's interesting that you really see it on staging as something that staging is one of those things that I think the average agent does not articulate as their value proposition. It's like one of these elements of service that we provide, which we're uniquely capable of providing as real estate professionals, but which the average agent kind of says, well, you know, that's for professional decorators and it's not really, you know, what I do. And it's only for high-end properties. So it's not really for this more modest property. And I couldn't disagree with that concept more. Like, to me, getting a house ready for show and helping, you know, improve the way it presents is, to me, like, this is like one of the most important things that we could do for that seller. And we don't, when I say that we've kind of missed the value proposition, I think there's too many agents out there that are going to listing presentations saying, look, I take your listing and it shows up on all over the web, on every website. It's like,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, because nobody's doing that, right, Joe?
In 1998, that was awesome that you did that. In 2004, that was great. But, like, you know, there's other things that we do now. And the trusted advisor that Stephanie mentioned, advising people, counseling through the process. Dean, this is what we do. This is when you talk about articulated value proposition and stuff like that. It doesn't, not staging just one piece of it, but it's a perfect illustration of how a lot of agents miss opportunities to articulate what value they can provide to people.
Right.
And I think a lot of agents, again, in my short experience of 8 years, is I found that I was able to stand out quickly because a lot of agents wouldn't put the money out. And I would say to my seller, I'm going to pay for this because I believe this so strongly. And listen, for $2,500 in my market, like, think of that return. If I was able to sell it faster and for more money, statistically, the closer you get to the listing date, the higher the price is. So my statistics are 103% of that listing price, or 105 or 106 right off the bat. So it was a good way to kind of be unique. But I agree that it's really hard to be unique when the consumer thinks all they do is put up a sign and the house sells itself. I get like, oh my gosh, no,
well,
it doesn't.
I don't think they think that now. And I think, Denise, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, all I was gonna say is I think that you're right that, like, you defined a unique part of your value prop for you that made you very different and sort of helps you set you apart. But it's also, it does tie into, like, I think that what the consumer is looking for is, Darice, you tell me what it's going to take for me to list my property for the highest price and as quickly as possible. And your expert advice as a consultant is, you know, it has to look like this, and this is an unacceptable, you know, odor. And I'm not afraid to give you the bad news that, you know, you got to, like, take the cat to your sisters, you know, stuff like that too.
Hey, let me ask you, because I think that's a good example of, I think it's a great example of something that, you know, may not get articulated as part of the value proposition in 2023 that an agent brings. What are some other examples? What do you think are some of the things that agents bring to the table that they may not be articulating well enough as part of their value proposition to clients? Dean.
I'll jump in there. So I think one of the key components to advisory capacity, you know, is making sure, of course, that we're letting the client make the decisions. I think far too often I see realtors making the decisions or you know, answering on behalf of their client before they even speak with the client, right? But our ability to negotiate, whether it's price, whether it's the contingencies, whether it's the situation, whether it's staging, right? Our ability to negotiate in that advisory capacity, I think, is one key component that is undervalued. You know, it's advisory, great. We're going to tell them, you know, what we know, help them make a decision that's right for them and their family and their situation. But helping them navigate the negotiation, knowing what can happen. You know, these are the things that can happen. You know, you get an offer, you know, 3 things. You can say yes, you can say no, or you can counter. And what are the ramifications of each? Because ultimately, they're looking at the realtor to say, what do you think I should do? Well, it's not about what I think you should do, because it's not my transaction. Let's go through the pitfalls. Let's go through the ramifications and the details to help you make the right decision for yourself. And I think that's what's missing in that exercise of conversation with the client is, you know, many realtors are just jumping to, here's what I think we should do. We have the highest bid. We should ask, you know, we have multiple offers. We should ask for highest and best and set a timeline instead of saying, here are our options. How would you like to proceed? You know, they're jumping ahead and making decisions for the clients. So negotiation is an art that many need to just really spend some time and perfect.
Stephanie.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a good question, Joe, because you have me thinking about some of the best agents I know and what they do differently. And I think one big thing is that, and also kind of relates to our topic overall, is some of the best agents I know are proactive in the sense that they don't just wait for someone to call them. They position themselves consistently throughout the year and year over year as a resource, right? So they say, you know, there's a, you know, they'll do like an annual real estate review for people and say, it's the end of the year, let's dig in, let's look at the market data, and I can tell you, you know, kind of what's going on in the climate. Here's what's happening with mortgage rates. I know you're not even thinking about buying or selling, but come to me for advice, and, you know, let's price your house now. Just for fun. It's a good way to keep a temperature, but for an agent, it's an amazing way to stay in touch with their sphere, to start a conversation. They may or may not, you know, be looking to buy or sell, but their family member might be, and so then they're top of mind, versus like every 7-year conversation and maybe an annual like change your clock backs newsletter. It's just a really, really smart way to consistently be a resource, not just related to the purchase or sale of a home at the time.
Yeah, one of the things I've always talked about with agents when I've done coaching and training and worked with my agents is you have to be willing to provide services, and you referenced this before, Stephanie, you're kind of building on it, that you have to be willing to provide services that you don't get paid for. You have to expand your conception of what clients are and what they need, that, you know, and I think a lot of agents are willing to do that. They're, you know, if someone calls you and says, I'm not selling my house, but I need a contractor, most agents will try to hook them up with somebody who's really good. Like, they look at that as an opportunity to further the relationship. But I don't think we've ever really articulated a lot of that very well. And I think that we tend to present ourselves to consumers as transactional, because that's when we get paid. So that's when we're front and center with them. But the problem is that if you build the relationship with somebody, well, then the transaction naturally flows to you if you have that relationship with them. If you don't have the relationship with them, you're constantly chasing the transaction. How do we build that mindset? I'll throw it to anybody. How do we build that mindset that expand your conception of, you know, you talk about being proactive, expand your conception by being proactive with people that you're providing services that they may not even know they need yet, like a yearly update on, you know, their home value and stuff like that.
Joe, let me jump in on that if I may, because you mentioned providing services that we're not getting paid for. You know, I want to look at an alternate perspective of that, because when that transaction does flow back to you, you're ultimately paid for that at a very high level. I think we all need to acknowledge that we get paid very well in the industry. There are times that we earn every penny of that, and there are times that we don't. That doesn't change our value. But when we look at the activities that lead to that result, all of those activities you mentioned to stay top of mind and to service, provide resources, to me, that's an investment in that future payment. It's not unpaid activities, right? So it's just, you know, and I'm not saying that's the direction you were saying it. I just want to provide that alternative perspective, right? You know, because it's an investment for that future future payment. You know, you look at the brokerage fees over the past decade have doubled with the way sales prices have gone. Our expenses in advertising or marketing, which we think is advertising, but it's really about us, right, as agents, you know, so, you know, the investment hasn't changed significantly, but the income potential has. So I think it's
Yes,
an investment of time for that future opportunity.
I should clarify, we don't get paid right away. You don't literally get paid for giving somebody a reference to a contractor, but you do build a relationship that can ultimately lead to.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I just wanted to compound on that.
Darice, tell me a little bit about what you do on that, and then I want to ask Brittany a question. But Darice, tell me a little bit about how you approach that. What, you know, the longer relationship building that you do with clients.
Well, Dean, I have never heard anybody say that, and I wish I had, because I'm very aware that we get paid very well. And so I'm an agent who sometimes feels a little bit, I won't say guilty, but, you know, willing to say, oh, I know it's a lot of money when you're looking at that final closing document saying, wow, $18,000 on just my side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, wait, remind me of the original question, Joe. I'm sorry.
Take it whichever way you want. I just want to talk. We're talking about the value proposition, and I think I just wanted to take it from, you know, you're working on a day-to-day basis with people and how you perceive that
Sure.
value proposition that you're giving. We used staging as an example, but there are other examples, and you know, and I think Stephanie raised the issue of, you know, doing things that don't necessarily lead to immediate compensation, but do relationship building.
Yeah,
So
sure. Well, I do a lot of networking. So you can tell I'm very extroverted. So that's a place that I really like to shine. And I don't find a lot of other agents in the room when I do networking. So, you know, even if I'm in a women's group or a local chamber, you know, people are seeing me 1 to 2 to 3 times a month, talking about the market, talking about my successes, talking about, you know, a certain challenge. And so that's one way that I definitely think that people can remain liking, knowing, and trusting me, right? Because that's what we need to do. To convince them to hire us, they need to know, like, and trust us. My doing that leads to more referrals. We're still a very much referral-based company. I'd like to not require or rely on that so much. I'd love to have more inbound marketing, you know, someone calling. And I think that means that I need to, you know, for example, I'm always saying to myself, I need to go on Reels. I need to put my face on Facebook. I need to, you know, be out there more, because that is our new way of word of mouth, in my opinion. You know, if I'm talking on Facebook Live, all of a sudden I have a platform where I didn't before. So I think it is, you know, like I said, just staying in front of people. I do make a lot of phone calls. I do check in. I do go for coffees. I will have a client appreciation event, and I love the client review, Stephanie, at the end of the year, or like mid-January. Here's how last year looked, what's coming in the future. So trying to always provide that value is important.
Darice, you know, it's interesting because I never thought of this before, but sorry, Joe, it just, when you, like you say the comment, like when you say at the closing statement, the $18,000, like, what if you said to somebody, that's a lifetime investment? You know, at the end of the day, the lifetime value you're going to get out of that, because I'm now a resource for you year round. It's just an interesting concept and a way to sort of position it differently. I think there's a lot of other ways too, people, brokers and agents, that give back to the community, whether it's by getting involved in nonprofits, whether it's, you know, I have a broker right now who partners with a local photographer at the end of the year and does like a pumpkin photo, and it can be a family photo, it can be an agent headshot, and you know, he invests in that, and it's a way, it's a recruiting tool for him, right? But it's also a way for his agents to invite people to give back to their clients throughout the year, and to your you know, client appreciation parties and holiday parties, volunteering, all of that is sort of investment of your time, energy, money, resources, and in the end, it gives back in this sort of long-term value.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always been a big believer in that, you know, about doing, you know, being involved in the local community, which, you know, has its own benefits in terms of what it might do for your business, in terms of promoting yourself, but also, I mean, the attitude I always take is that what we sell are the communities we live in. I mean, Darice sells Philadelphia, Dean sells Rhode Island. That if you're in the industry and all those, every Corcoran company in the country sells, Corcoran Manhattan sells Manhattan and the Manhattan lifestyle. And anything that makes our communities a better place to live, that's our product. That's good for us. And so
Yeah.
like whatever we can do,
Right.
you know, I just was at an event on Saturday. My wife's the chair of the board of the local women's shelter. And I did their auction, and like, you know, we raised a lot of money and it was really good. And it's a wonderful cause. And like, even, you know, that you need that in your community, that, you know, you need the stuff that provides services to people. You need stuff that I've talked to some agents who do a wonderful job promoting. They do a restaurant a week and they promote the restaurant because that supports the community. I wanted to go because I want to get back to Brittany for 1 second. Just ask you, as we're talking about the value proposition, I mean, Curbio is one of the, you know, one of the companies in the universe of companies that are in our industry that I think works to enhance the value proposition that agents have. So I want to make sure that what specific things does Curbio do that you think? Darice mentioned one of them because she said one of her pictures was used with the staging and whatnot. What does Curbio do that helps agents and brokers maintain their value proposition for consumers?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I want to give a perspective before I top into Curbio. I just want to talk real quick on, you know, our value proposition as agents, and kind of my perspective on that. When I got out of the military and was no longer serving our country, my thought process was, how can I serve another entity, or how can I fulfill that void that I was feeling? And that's ultimately what I see as far as like my value proposition, or why I got into real estate, is because it filled the void. And so serving, we are in a servant industry. Nonetheless, we are serving the communities that we live within. And I think we get a little bit away from that as we, you know, are in the hustle and bustle of the day in and day out. So I just wanted to kind of give that spin on that. And, you know, I talk to lots of military veterans who don't know a direction getting out of the military. And one of the things I harp on is, you know, if you have that mentality, that drive, you know, that resilience, the real estate industry is one of those industries that you're still serving your community. So just wanted to put that little spin on there. But as far as Curbio, you know, Curbio is another value proposition that agents can add to their suite of services to make them stand out as they are positioning themselves in the market. And I think we've all kind of talked about a lot of the agents that we see in the market today have not gone through these downturns. Came into the industry when it was thriving and things were flying off the market. And so they weren't really looking for tools and resources to help boost their value as an agent. And Curbio is one of those things, because every home, as I stated earlier, needs some sort of pre-listing sprucing up, pre-listing repairs, renovations. It needs something to get ready for market. You don't just slap a home on the market. Again, that's why they come to you as an advisor to advise them on those things. So Curbio is a tool to utilize to streamline those services and just really provide a superior value. And of course, we are seeing an economic downturn, and I don't like to talk broadly about it, but the pay at closing model that Curbio offers is a really good resource to sellers, because I think we could all agree that sellers are not just entering the market to sell their house today because they want to. There's usually a clear reason why they're selling, whether they need to downsize, or there's a divorce, or some sort of life-changing, altering event is happening, and that's why they're entering the market. So understanding your sellers is just a huge thing that I think we went away from during the COVID times when things
We
are
didn't have a
just
long
popping up.
relationship with sellers. You know, you're tough to
Yeah.
establish relationship with sellers when they sell in 3 days. I wanted to reframe, because one of the things that jumped out at me about the topic title was productive, proactive, and competitive. And we've talked a bit about, I think it's been really instructive, about the value proposition that agents have. And I think I'd like to now sort of talk about what's the competitive advantage that agents can bring? How can they differentiate themselves? I think we've touched a little bit on it. Darice talked about the differentiation that she makes in terms of staging. But what are some of the ways that you see agents or brokers differentiating themselves in the market in a way that enhances their competitiveness to in relation to the rest of the industry? And I'll let you marinate on that and just to kind of posit the idea that I think it's becoming increasingly important for us to articulate that value proposition generally. As an industry, I think we're at risk of being disintermediated because we've not done a very good job of explaining to people what we actually do for them. And so we need to do that. But I think on a fundamental basis, you know, it's a competitive landscape out there. What are you doing different from the rest of the industry that sets you apart? Anybody wants to jump in, go ahead.
To the consumer or to agents?
I think whatever. I want to get into the realm of, you know, what's the competitive, what are some of the competitive advantages that you see people articulating that you think are instructive to other people in the industry?
I can start. Two things I'd say. From a consumer perspective, I think one of the reasons that I joined Corcoran was because I was really turned on by the consumer-centric messaging, and it's a brand that's always been about putting the consumer at the center of everything we do, and so that comes through our marketing and our advertising, but also in our ethos and the culture and the way that we develop. You know, our tagline is "Live Who You Are," and it's all about kind of connecting the consumer or the customer with the home that fits their heart. And it's a very sort of emotional play. It's not necessarily like intellectual, and it's so that's what was a big difference for me. But the other thing I was just thinking, this is top of mind for me, Joe, so if it's off topic, but it around agents and how some brokerages and brokers are really defining their value prop differently. And I think it all goes down to culture. I happened to be with a broker yesterday, and we sat with 15 of his folks that were a combination of new and experienced and top producing agents. And we went around the room and asked them all sort of why they picked that company and what it was about that company that made them stay, which was important in two very different answers. And it was incredibly inspiring because they all talked about the leader and the culture and the community and the family. And I think that, you know, that's what makes brokerages different and sticky today. And the really great leaders are doing a really, really good job of that.
Mm. Yeah, Dean?
I'll add to that. And I think that's spot on. I think, you know, call it culture, you know, what is culture, right? Culture, I always say culture is in people, not in companies. It's all about the atmosphere you've created. We call it the experience, right? The HomeSmart experience. You know, what is it that we're providing where people feel part of something bigger than themselves? And every real estate company really is a brokerage services company, right? We're providing services to entrepreneurs, independent contractors who are providing services to their clients, right? So ultimately, as a broker, our charge is to provide them what they need to be successful in their careers, whether it's technology, whether it's education, whether it's just overall coaching and support and collaboration. What is it that we're providing that allows them to truly succeed and excel in their industry? So culture is a big part of it. And to your point, that stickiness, you know, that's so important when it comes down to leadership. You know, the expression I fall back on, the quote that I've heard many times is leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. And you know, it's so telling for me as a leader to ensure that I'm providing the very best and empowering others.
Darice, I know you want to get in.
Sorry, Darice.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, culture is super, super important to me. I want to be in an office where there's a lot of life, a lot of happening. I had been in another brokerage for some time, most of my career. I just made the switch this year. And it was when I felt the brokerage went against their unique selling proposition. You know, it was, well, I'm not going to mention the name. You know, well, we don't have any fees. We don't have any fees. We don't have any fees. And you have the best of everything. And then guess what? They plopped down a fee. And it was really, it felt bad to me because I was like, this is the antithesis of why what I thought we were about. And that was part of that mindset thing that I mentioned earlier, because it was explained as, the market isn't as good as it was, and there's inflation. And to me, the message was, and we're going to put that on you, agents. And that didn't feel good. So I made the change because of managers, leaders who are running the office, and directors of ops. I want to feel connected. I want to feel valuable, whether I'm in a leadership position or not. And you know what else is, I really want to be in a diverse position. I mean, Philadelphia has, a million neighborhoods. Like, we're kind of like Chicago, where if you're from South Philadelphia, you're this, and if you're from North Philadelphia, you're like that. And I'm sitting next door to someone who speaks 4 languages. I think that's incredible. I don't, I speak 1. And when I go down the hall, I'm hearing a Spanish mortgage person. I have goosebumps. I mean, isn't that what we're here to do, is serve all these different people who want to be, home ownership available to them? So that was huge when I got here. I was like, I did not expect that. Didn't know that it was going to be part of what I was going to enjoy so much. And I really do.
I want to reframe it because we start talking about competitiveness and how do you maintain competitiveness. And I think Stephanie took us on a really nice road to talk about that from a broker perspective, building that kind of culture that becomes sticky and becomes affirming. And both of you amplified that point. Let's use agents as an example. Let's take it from broker to agent of what are some of the opportunities that agents have to enhance their competitiveness vis-a-vis the other people in the industry? What are some of the things that can help you stand out in this or any other market that you've seen, Stephanie, among the agents that are part of the Corcoran environment, or that Dean, you've done personally, that you've seen agents at your company do? What are some of those? And it's not easy. I mean, we've talked about one. Darice referenced early on the staging, which I think is just a very clear example of one way you can do that. I think another way you can do that is, and it's Dean mentioned negotiation ability. I think it's another thing. I think sometimes the things that set agents apart are not so easy to market. Like, I'm really good at pricing homes. Like, sellers, even though that's the really important thing that we do for sellers, like it's probably the most important thing you do for a seller, but it's not easy to articulate that as a value prop, because what it often means is I convince you not to overprice your home, which is, the seller, that's not the message that is convincing to get that listing. What are some of the things that agents do that they can set themselves apart competitively? Anybody?
I feel like I'm always jumping in first, so I'll wait. So here's what I would say. And Darice, I also had an ad agency background. So this is where this comment comes from. Anytime I want to know what I can do differently or better, I do research. And so if you're an agent, talk to your customers, right? Like, ask them the same question I asked those agents yesterday to say, why did you pick this broker? And why are you staying with this broker? Because interestingly, as a side, a lot of the times the answer yesterday from the agents was because when he interviewed me, he asked me questions. He really wanted to know about me and who I was as a person, and he was selective in the agents he picked. And the broker at the end of the conversation said, I had no idea that was so important to everybody. I was just genuinely being me. And so I think for the same thing with agents, right? Like, I don't know exactly what the answer is, because they should talk to their clients and say, what is it that you picked me for? Or why did you stay with me? Why did you work with me again? Or what are the things that I bring to the table? Or how can I make a difference? And the things that you can learn by just having an authentic, honest, open conversation about people's needs, I think are the answers are there. You just have to like uncover them. And so think of it like maybe like a focus group, right? And say, what is it that I can do differently, or how can I serve your needs, or what is it that maybe other people in other industries, other service industries, and frankly, Brittany, I thought you made an amazing point. Coming out of the military, a big part of what I think you learn in the military is rigor. And we haven't said that word today, but I think that that's, Darice, what you're explaining too, is that, I think the agents that really, I think, excel, particularly in a market like this, they have rigor, and they have a thoughtful approach to their business. And so incorporating sort of firsthand research, I think, could be a pretty powerful way of defining what your business is going to look like in 2024.
Great point. It's a great point. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll springboard off of that with education, and not as far as education for the agent, because agents need resources of education. But I think the agent who educates the consumer the most is the one who's going to win every time, right? At the end of the day, any interview, and I call it a client interview rather than a presentation, because it's a mindset. You go in there with a mindset of an interview. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you, right? Do you want to sell? Do I want this listing? And I think walking a consumer through the process of what's going to follow is what's going to lead them down the path of comfort and confidence in that agent. I think so often, to your point earlier, Joe, price is a big part of what we do, but it has nothing to do with what we do as realtors. That's what appraisers do. But for some reason, the consumer judges us on the price we set on the property. They hire the realtor that gives them the highest price. It has nothing to do with what they're going to do, but they give them the highest price and they hire them, right? So I think armed with enough education to consult with that consumer and make sure they know what to expect in the upcoming transaction shows your confidence in your ability and that value, going back to that value proposition. So I think, getting in front of them is one thing. Making sure that they see that value and that education and insight is powerful.
Darice.
I think I love that Dean said the person who educates the most wins, essentially. I have not heard it in terms like that, but I think you're absolutely right. I think that the agents who are doing a lot of, I keep referring to social media because it's the one area that I would like to make much more robust going forward, to not rely on those referrals so much, but also, showing that you go above and beyond. If you look at reviews of agents, it's kind of clear what you can see, how you can stand out, right? If the agent asks for them, that's half the battle, is getting the reviews. The other half is, making sure the agent asks for them. The other thing that I was going to say is, just keeping top of the tools. I mean, I'll pay $13.99 for my MLS every month for a smart chart that makes me look, frankly, smarter. I took one to a listing appointment yesterday, and it was all about the zip code, January through September. And I sat there thinking, this isn't a chart that people really use. There are so many tools out there that we can use to enhance our own abilities and help our sellers and our buyers learn more. A lender came in on another transaction and said, do you know that I have $15,000 in grant money for, how did he put it, census tract zip codes or areas? So to enhance certain underserved populations, he had this money. And that is a real way that I can stand out if I'm going back to my buyer saying, you know what, there's a lot of mortgage people that you can pair with, but this one has this grant. It's pretty powerful.
The something Dean said, which I think is I want to explore with we have a little bit of time left, is the concept of that pricing, the extent to which like a consumer makes a very bad decision if they choose an agent based on the price that the agent recommends for the home. And I agree completely with Dean about the fact that, to my mind, the role that an agent has in pricing is about educating the consumer about what's going on in the market and helping the client understand where the pricing, what the price range will likely be. Not telling this, I think you made another good point before, Dean, when you said, we don't make the decisions for the client makes the decisions. And I think pricing is a decision the client should be able to make, which we should educate them. And if they make a decision about pricing that we think is, just crazy talk, then you can walk away. But it's ultimately their decision if they want to test the market, if they want to. They're the boss. They're the client. We listen to them.
Right.
But one of the things that always jumps out at me about this industry, and it goes to something also Stephanie said earlier about the consumers, that do the consumers really appreciate, are they rewarding the good agents enough? Like, are they choosy enough about who they select as their agent? Because we still have in this industry, I think it's changed. I think we're getting, as Darice mentioned, reviews, and I think that people are using reviews more, and they're using references, and they're asking around for referrals more than maybe they used to. But we still have entire industries built up in real estate around lead generation that all presupposes that the consumer is going to work with who's ever in front of them at any given time, that they're going to click on the button and whoever responds first is the person who's going to get their business, when responding first to an email inquiry on a website is not at all a test of how good that person is at the job. It's just how good they are at responding to email solicitations,
or how not busy they are at the moment.
Yeah, how they're sitting there waiting for the text to come in. Oh, here it is, and I'm gonna reply now. What are consumers choosy enough, and what can we do to make them more choosy, so they work with the better agents that deserve the business and will provide a better experience and make the industry look better and help us in all of these things? What can we do to make? What can we do to help
way
more choosy?
I feel like commission would never be an issue if we went in proving our value.
Yeah.
Because think of what you have purchased. I know that I have purchased coaching programs that are like ridiculous, but somehow that value was imparted to me, that it was something that I needed. It was going to have a solution to a challenge that I'm experiencing. So it's all about value. I see, you know, in this market, just as any others, I'm sure, meaning my Philadelphia market, not real estate industry, that, you know, commissions are eroding. And I think that is, you know, because some of the not newer players, I don't want to be stereotypical about that, but maybe the ones that are not kind of touting their value so much, you know, are
Well, if you don't
easy to
compete
say,
on
well, I
value,
can do
you
it.
compete on price.
I can do it at 4.5. It's like, oh my gosh, please don't, you know.
Don't use numbers. Never use numbers.
And we've all had our friend or family. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe, what?
No, just don't use numbers when we talk about these things across markets about what a commission might be. I got that deeply instilled in me for 10 years. I think that's right. I mean, I think what you were saying was basically, you know, if we don't articulate a value proposition as an industry or as an individual agent or as an individual broker, then you're always subject to the possibility that people will choose price over value because they don't see the value. And that's the risk you have. I see you're shaking your head, Steph.
Well, no, I'm agreeing, but I think my analogy is the same of, and we've all experienced it personally and professionally, when someone falls in love with the home, price is a lot less important, right? And so everything the house represents is the same as our value proposition. And so if we can articulate it, if we can make an emotional connection, kind of back to what I was saying before, I think people make decisions differently. And so, but to your question, Joe, do we do a good enough job educating a consumer about how and why they should select an agent? No, I don't think we do. And I think consumers have gotten better, but we've got a long way to go. A lot of times it's, you know, the statistics of the number of people who meet with one agent that they were referred to by a friend of a friend of a friend. I mean, it's embarrassing. And I think we can do better. We really can. We've come a long way, but I think there's a huge opportunity there for sure.
Definitely. Let me add to that. I think we need to become comfortable being uncomfortable and talking about the competition without talking about the competition. And what I mean by that is we need to, if we're in front of a seller interview, we need to be comfortable knowing that they are probably speaking with other realtors, even if it's a direct referral. I've lost listings to someone who was referred to me because I went in and I assumed I had the listing. I didn't even talk about my value proposition. I just went in and assumed, right? So silly me, but you know, simple questions, you know, such as, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm not sure what the other agents are saying to you when you're interviewing other agents, because, you know, and be comfortable saying, are you interviewing with other agents? They might actually be honest with you, right? But, you know, just a simple statement of, I'm not sure what other agents are advising you, but what's important to me is that I'm making sure you're fully informed as to what you're going to encounter in your upcoming transaction and what's happening not only in the industry, but in our specific marketplace, because it's that information that's important for your success in this transaction. So just leading into, hey, compare me to somebody else without actually saying that, lead them down the path of that comparison that they should be making to see how much better you are at articulating that value.
That's a great point. And we're running out of time. And I promised you when we went into this that we would I'd give everybody 30 seconds for a takeaway. Something that either you want to reiterate, something you already said, or something you didn't get a chance to say, or just a last impression you want to leave with everybody who's watching us today. Let me start with, Darice spoke last. Not the last person to speak. Darice, I'll go back to you. Give me a takeaway. Give me something, some piece of wisdom you'd like to share with the people watching today.
Okay, this could be the next webinar. I think our entrance to the industry is too low. I think for $1,000 to $1,500 in education and a couple of fees, it's way too low. I think our value proposition could be a lot higher if somebody says it's $5,000 to start a business, and it can be a fabulous one if you want to take that on. I think also the industry, we're going to be seeing a lot of changes as technology continues to improve. And one of them would be maybe the buy side is going to pay some of the commission, and maybe some of our less motivated agents will fall away. That was more than one, sorry.
No, that was good. Stephanie, takeaway.
Well, I appreciate, Denise, your like PSA. That was an awesome opportunity I've missed. But I would say that I think this too shall pass is a big message. I think you need to invest in yourselves right now, and then keeping yourself afloat and investing in yourself to keep yourself afloat. Don't be embarrassed about that. I think that a lot of people are looking around saying this market's tough right now, and maybe my P&L is not in great shape, or my business isn't what it was before, and a lot of people are experiencing the same thing. So reach out to your community and let us all kind of lift everybody up, because I think we all need to work together a lot more.
Dean.
Thanks. I think I'll add, we didn't go down the path, but I'll add, I think we all fall victim to wearing too many hats in this industry. We do too many things. And I think at the end of the day, nobody can perfect all of those tasks that are associated with a real estate transaction or servicing a client. So if anything, I will add that, you need to focus on what you do best and do it the best, and delegate everything else.
I'll give my quick takeaway, which is that Darice talked about the mindset of having that positive mindset. And I'll just tell everybody, the market is not as good as it was 2 years ago when we had the best market in the history of real estate in the world. So yes, it has faded since then, and rates have had a big part to do with that. And I think in a lot of places in this country, we're back down to about sales rates of probably 2013, 2014, which, are not a lot lower than where they were 2-3 years ago, but also prices are 30% higher than they were in 2013, 2012, which means that volume in the business is higher than it was. And it wasn't like we were in 2013, 2014 bemoaning the state of the market. It's the fact that right now our baseline was set so high 2 years ago that we're seeing this as a come down. It's like the water was hot and now it feels cold because it's not, but it's still warmish. It just feels cold because we're used to it being so hot. And I think people have to be a little bit more positive and not get so down at the fact that we went through a boom and now we're fading from the boom. And keep your nose to the grindstone and keep working. Let me let Brittany finish, and I put back up the QR code to sign up for this conference. So I'll let you close with that.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I just want to say my takeaway from this is educate yourselves as agents and brokers and be a sponge, become the industry leader, become the expert in your market. And of course, understand the tools and resources that are out there for agents and brokers to set themselves apart. And KERO is definitely one of those tools. I will leave you guys with Refresh. Again, this is going to be our in-person conference that we are having in February, February 4th through 6th. Be on the lookout for a raffle for a free ticket in the follow-up email. There will be a form for you to fill out. If you're interested in coming and possibly getting a free ticket, feel free to do so. There's also going to be a few survey questions in the follow-up email, and I would appreciate, and our Kerbio team would appreciate, if you fill out those few survey questions. It always helps us to be better and do better and just understand the industry as a whole.
All right, well, I've got the email that we've gone long and they're going to yell at me, so I have to cut it short there. Brittany had the last word. Keep an eye out for that email. Thank you, Darice. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Dean. It was a really great hour that we spent together. I really appreciate everybody who was watching. Everybody have a great day. Keep up the great work. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Well
everyone.
done, Joe.
Bye.
Well done. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.